This feature is powered by Digicel. Digicel, better together.
Trinidad and Tobago will always live on. Colonialism gone, our nation is born.
Oi, we go with Port of Spain. Oi, we go with Port of Spain. Oi, we go with Port of Spain. Oi, we land in Port of Spain. Let's go. Port of Spain. That's how we bubbling with Port of Spain.
With Abercrombie as the new governor, Port of Spain underwent its first ever census. In 1797, the population stood at 4,525 people, making Port of Spain the largest settlement in Trinidad. Of that, there were 3,500 slaves and free blacks and 1,000 whites. There were no estates in Port of Spain, but there was a factory, a cotton mill. Some of the major buildings to be constructed there at the time were the Trinity Cathedral, consecrated in 1823, the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, completed in 1832, and the public jail erected on Clarence Street, which is now the upper part of Frederick Street, in 1812. Slowly but surely, the area began to get more and more developed. The telephone service started in 1883. Electricity service was up and running in 1895, and with electric power came electric tram lines.
I hear in a big thing, it's talking like iron, like it for the Spain, like it for the Spain, and a city rhythm, coming from the oil drum.
If you want to find out how much Port of Spain has changed, talk to someone who was born and bred in the area and is in their late 80s or so. If you're in your 80s, it a real change up, ain't? There was once a place called Corbeau Town. Yes, had a real Corbeau there. They used to come for the fish. Think down by Sackville Street, St. Vincent Street minus Rising Road. And if you're into art, you may be familiar with some of Casabon's work. 1813 to 1888, he used to do a lot of art of Corbeau Town. Many of us can't even imagine what it would look like if there wasn't a licensing office, UTT, and government plaza. But at one point in time, those places weren't even a dream. Around 1900, a roadway was extended through the area, cutting across Lower Sackville Street, and the area started to take shape. That road was named after the engineer, Walsh Ryson. Corbeau Town basically stayed the same during the 1920s, and in 1936 to 1938, Ranjit Kumar decided to turn Ryson Road into a dual carriageway. For him to do that though, he had to reclaim the swampy land between the original route that Ryson created and the sea. Ryson Road was officially extended and completed in 1940. The area would go through many massive changes from then to now, but symbols of the past remain, like William Pettigrew Humphrey's film vault.
Have you heard the fire siren alarm, do darling?
Fire, fire in Port of Spain.
A cool walk to see what do us no harm, yes baby.
Fire, fire in Port of Spain.
The American custom is burning down, do darling.
Fire, fire in Port of Spain.
When Sir Ralph Woodford became governor in 1813, he was all about beautifying the place. Thanks to him, we have spaces like the Botanical Gardens, Woodford Square, formerly Brunswick Square, and Marine Square. So, you see where the Brian Lara Promenade is today? Back then, if you took a stroll on that side, you'd be walking down Marine Square. It became Independence Square at the end of British rule in 1962. And then Brian Lara Promenade came into being in 1994. Of course, when Brian Lara set the record. It was always somewhere that the lovers and the destitute would frequent. Go down there at night, and sometimes even during the day. And trust me, you'll see. Nowadays, Port of Spain is made up of uptown and downtown Port of Spain, Sea Lots, Belmont, St. Clair, Woodbrook, and St. James. Now, St. James was the site of Peru Estate, where Sir Ralph Abercrombie and his troops entered Trinidad in order to seize it from the Spanish in 1797. It was made a part of the city in 1936. It was heavily Indian after the indentured laborers settled there at the end of their 5-year contracts. but became a lot more diverse after the name changed to St. James to match the nearby barracks. On the other hand, Belmont was the part of Port of Spain that was traditionally African, as a lot of emancipated slaves settled there after 1838. Back then, it was called Freetown. Yeah, like the group. St. Clair, originally known as the finest real estate on the island, was reserved for the ruling class. Back in the late 18th century, St. Clair was developed as a sugar estate, only to be converted to a stock farm and breeding station in the late 19th century. There, they would rear cattle to supply milk to the hospitals and asylums. Nowadays, it's the home of embassies and businesses. There's still so much to say about Port of Spain, like the fact that the lighthouse never really served its purpose because the water was so shallow on that side, ships never needed it to get to land. They dock further out and take boats filled with items for sale or maybe trade to shore. Port of Spain has always been a place of commerce, and to this day, it continues along that vein. There's so much to learn about the development of Trinidad and Tobago, and hopefully this episode has whet your appetite and made you hungry for more info on how places like Port of Spain came about.
Meet me in Port of Spain, I'm coming home again. Don't let me see you with no kunu-munu. Spend Carnival with me, do-do. Spend Carnival with me, do-do. Spend Carnival with me.
This feature was powered by Digicel. Digicel, better